Debbie Stabenow.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Don't you wish the secretary would just be a little more enthusiastic? You know, he and I like mind meld on so many things. I am so glad that you were here. I do have to tell you, though, that as a state that like grows a lot of biofuels and makes electric vehicles, I like both. And so we need sustainable aviation fuel. And then we also, and I'm excited, I'm going to be with the president in just a couple of hours, announcing some policies that relate to making sure we have a level playing field with China as we look at clean energy manufacturing, EVs, which is so very important. So I am really glad to be here. Where's Nira? I don't know if she had to leave. Nira Tandon is awesome, and thank you. And our HHS Deputy Secretary, Andrea Palm. Wait, I'm looking, okay, am I seeing? Oh, right here, okay, great to see you. And also from Michigan, Sarah Lucas. I was looking for Sarah, there you are, thank you for all of your efforts as director of our Office of Rural Prosperity. It's great to be here with you and really talk about the investments and the vision I think that we all share for lifting up small towns, rural communities. I grew up in one in northern Michigan, and think it is so very important that we're lifting up quality of life, both farmers and those not on the farm, and just the broader rural community. It's so very important. And I know the Secretary has talked about all the different investments. I mean, when you look at everything from the American Rescue Plan and the transportation efforts, you know, finally coming out of COVID, we didn't have to convince people that high-speed internet is actually a part of necessary infrastructure. You know, people were finally figuring that out, and now we just got to make that happen. The Inflation Reduction Act, all of the efforts that we can do together around that. We have put things in place that frankly need to just happen for the next multiple years to like really take hold as we turn this economic engine around. And today I want to talk about how we do the next step to continue to give our farmers and our families the certainty they need. And that is frankly a 5-year farm bill. I have been in the U.S. House and Senate now a long time. It's my 28th year. I've been a part of 6 farm bills. So this is the 3rd one I've led. Shoot me now, So this is the hardest one I mean, they're always difficult. But at this stage, we're usually beyond the politics of nutrition and food, and we're down to actually, negotiating farm bill. And that hasn't happened yet. But being the eternal optimist, I am working hard, and my colleagues, Democratic colleagues, particularly in the Senate, are working hard to get the bipartisan support that we've got to need. We've got to have. We put together the Rural Prosperity and Food Security Act, and that's what we are pushing on. I want to share a little bit about this today, because if I was here saying the president just signed it, you'd be jumping up and down with balloons and cake and whatever else, And people across the country would be very excited. And we know we have to negotiate that. That's all part of it. But we have a basis of something that would move us to the next step. And it's serious. It reflects bipartisan priorities that do 3 things that I've said over and over again need to be our goals. Keep farmers farming, keep families fed, and keep rural communities strong. And that's what we do. And we really need to get this passed as soon as possible. And I'm literally working every day on trying to make that happen. But the foundation of a successful farm bill is built on a broad bipartisan coalition. It's farmers and ranchers and rural communities and foresters and nutrition and hunger advocates and conservationists and bioenergy advocates and local governments and climate advocates. It's everybody, which is why I'm going to ask for your help today, because it's not about dividing people. You will never get a bill. It's about bringing that coalition together and keeping that coalition together. And the Rural Prosperity and Food Security Act does that on a broad basis. In fact, I've included over 100 bipartisan bills in our Farm Bill, bills that Republicans and Democrats on my committee and off my committee have been working on together this Congress. We have included all of that as part of what we are doing. We're strengthening the farm safety net, which is so important, by making meaningful investments that frankly focus our tax dollars on American farmers that have dirt under their fingernails, not Wall Street bankers and foreign investors. We should not be offering commodity farm payments to those folks, and we don't in this bill. Importantly, we focus on beginning farmers. You know, like so many of us, folks are reaching retirement. And whether it's young people continuing the family farm or whether it's new people wanting to go into farming, we have to make that accessible for future farmers, for all of us. We provide farmers and ranchers more timely and flexible choices, things like crop insurance that helps cover risk, and more flexible commodity programs, and more opportunity for affordable credit so you can operate the farm. And we focus on specialty crops, fruits and vegetables, which we grow many, many of in Michigan, and our dairy farmers. So we look at all of it around the country. And we are supporting rural communities because we know that supporting communities goes far beyond the farm, far beyond the farm. And all you have to do is look at the bioeconomy that the Secretary was talking about. Across the country, bio-based products have grown into a $489 billion industry that supports over 4 million jobs and counting right now. In the 2014 Farm Bill, the first one that I wrote as chair, I created something to focus on bio-based manufacturing and biofuels and jobs, and it was called Grow It Here, Make It Here. And we really focused at that point, how do we rev up on the bio-labeling and biomanufacturing? And it's of course it's biofuels, but it's very exciting to see so many ways in which we have bio-based products. In fact, in that year, in 2014, I held up, Ford Motor Company was working with Lear, they still are, to do soy-based foam in their seats. So it's not oil-based, and that's what they do today. Soy foam is in the seats of the vehicles that you are buying, which is great because if you get hungry, got something to munch on. And so, but they gave me a seat, and I would go all over Michigan holding up this seat. This seat has soybeans in it, you know, or the corn-based products that are in the cup holders, and I could go on and on. There are so many opportunities. There's research being done now with Goodyear on tires using soy. So there's so many opportunities beyond the great opportunities on fuels that we need to capture. And that's what we're building on this bill. The other thing we want to do is really focus on all the pressures that families feel in small towns and rural communities and invest in quality of life as a priority. In our bill, we invest in rural health care, including elder care facilities, behavioral health centers, and schools. We focus on the kind of health care that my mom provided when she was director of nursing at the small hospital where I grew up. By the way, if we still have our rural hospitals, they're likely to be the largest employer in town and a center, as you know, of quality of life. And we want to make sure that as many of them as possible can stay there and be able to provide that care. We want young people not to have to leave a small town to be able to feel that they have opportunities. And we know that a big piece of this is childcare. Quality, affordable childcare. So we take a new comprehensive approach to rural childcare by prioritizing projects that address availability, quality, and cost in rural communities. And this is important. And we tear down the barriers in our rural communities to accessing federal resources. Now, I know this continues to be a challenge, although I'm so proud of President Biden and the administration for the Rural Partnerships Network. We need to keep that going, really lifting that up. And in fact, we do that in this bill. The rural development title of the Farm Bill, one of the 12 titles, the rural development title usually authorizes programs, but then they're funded through appropriations. It's not mandatory money. For the first time, we are putting over $500 million in mandatory money into the Rural Partnership Program to make sure it actually happens. It's important that we are investing in quality of life, and we are also very focused in working with our friends and leaders on the Banking and Housing Committee on rural housing, which I know is also critically important. In fact, I was speaking at a conference of 15 small chambers of commerce in northern and lower Michigan, Traverse City area, God's country, in case you have not been there. It is so beautiful. 15 small counties, chambers. Top issue, childcare. Second issue, housing. And these are the local chambers, where years ago, that's not what I would have heard. And so we need to understand that, understand what you see every day, and make sure that the resources are there. And that's what I'm committed to. That's what this administration is committed to as well. We know that all of you, as rural leaders, are yourself juggling numerous responsibilities, and you need funding and staffing to successfully compete for public and private investments. We want to help you do that. The Rural Partnership Program, as you know, and permanently funded, will create a set of programs that we want to have that are flexible, that are multi-year, and that help you support local economic development and community development programs. That's the goal. That is the goal of this legislation. And that's my vision for the next 5-year Farm Bill. I said, I grew up in Michigan in Clare, and I never would have thought, frankly, I'd be a United States Senator writing my 3rd Farm Bill. I was a city kid. My relatives were all on dairy farms. They were the hardest working people I ever saw in my life. And I've taken those experiences and values with me to Washington to be able to lift up what's really happening in small towns, rural communities across the country. We can get this done. We can achieve it if we work together, if we don't blow up the coalition that has passed every Farm Bill, but brings everybody together. It doesn't demonize our neighbors and friends or somebody maybe we don't even know who needs some temporary help with food. Instead of demonizing that, let's bring the whole coalition together and talk about how we're going to lift up communities and families and our farmers who have the riskiest business in the world. Nobody has to watch the weather like they do. And nobody's been slammed more on the climate crisis. That's real. And so we have a stake in supporting them to be able to do the right thing, both on climate strategies and risk management. And that is important for us to do. So I need everybody in this room to shout from the rooftops about how important this work is, how important it is that we get this bill done and continue the vision of this administration, which I believe is on the right track, and we just need to keep pushing on it to make sure we get the full benefit of all of what we are talking about. We need and can and are rebuilding rural America if we can just keep focused on doing this. There's no doubt in my mind that we can do this. So in places like where I grew up in Clare, in places like where you live, in places where people live all across this country, we need to remember and support them and make sure our rural communities are strong. So thank you very much for giving me a chance to speak this morning. Thank you. And now I'm glad to introduce HHS Deputy Secretary Andrea Palm. Good morning. Welcome. My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.